What's going on, guys? Got another knife review here for you of the John Grimsmo Norseman. This is number 37 out of his production. This is from his second run, so I'll talk about some of the differences between his second run and his first run. There's not really many that I know of, but yeah, anyway, here we go. So John Grimsmo is a Canadian knife maker. He specialized, I believe, in scales, making knife scales before, specifically the Paramilitary 2 from Spyderco, the Mannix 2 from Spyderco, and then the CQC 7 from Emerson. And he would make these, CNC machine these scales out of aluminum. And I think he's sponsored from Tormac, which is a CNC machining company. And so I'm not sure if they donated the machine to him or whatever, but John and his brother Eric, they put up videos on YouTube, Knife Making Tuesdays. If you're not familiar with his channel, go over there right now and subscribe, because every pretty much Tuesday or Wednesday they would release, a new edition from for their series, as they were making this knife. This, after all their experience, of CNC machining and programming for their aluminum scales, they got into making their first knife. It's just amazing to think that this is their first knife, because it's awesome. It's stellar. It's made out of two slabs of titanium, anodized. This one's anodized gold. Each one is different. You've got standoffs right here. So just two standoffs. These are titanium. These are kind of anodized. I want to say purple. This one's purple. This one's kind of like purplish gold. And then the thumb stud right here is titanium anodized green, toxic green. So each one is different. Sometimes they're anodized blue handles or toxic green, or I've seen gold, silver. I don't know what else I've seen. I think I've seen purple as well, but the most popular colors are the blue, the toxic green, and this bronze anodized or gold anodized ones. So made out of, the blade steel is RWL 34, which is a powdered version or powdered steel of ATS 34, which is kind of like 154 cm. So basically, I'm thinking RWL 34 is pretty much going to be your same style steel as CPM 154. I hear that it's maybe a little bit finer grain, and so it really takes up a nice polish like you see on this blade here. Let me do a really quick size comparison here. Very similar to the Sebenza in length. It's a 3.6 inch, I think, blade. Here's the Hinder 3.5 inch blade. Here's the Burnley right here, which is also a 3.5 inch blade. And then the Steve Kelly Collision, which also is a 3.5 inch blade. So very similar size. You got the recurve Tonto style blade. Obviously it's a flipper. One of the most comfortable flippers that I've ever had to deploy. One of the first things that you'll notice on this blade, which is just amazing, I think it's amazing. Some people may think it's tacky, but these grind lines, I guess it's not really grind lines, these are actually CNC machine lines. So this blade is not, normally, these blades are, if they're hand ground or machine ground or whatever, you take this steel to a sand belt, and then they grind this out of these blades, so you get a smooth cut, and then it gets you use finer and finer sandpaper to get into to polish out and smooth out the grind on the blades. Whereas this blade is CNC machine, so you have a CNC machine that basically mills out line by line, deeper and deeper into this blade, all the way to the tip. And then you get a very thin and fine edge, and then at the very end, Eric sharpens up these blades on a wicked edge. So, you know, on both sides you get those CNC machine lines. It looks really sharp. Looks awesome on this knife. Flipping action on here is phenomenal. You got the ball bearings similar to the KVT system. I believe it's just the nylon race with steel ball bearings inside. And then what else is in here? You got on the second version, he has the little stop pin inside right there, or I guess it's an overextension bar for this. And basically what it is it's drilled into the pin is drilled into the lock bar, and then there's a little cutout right there that you can see on the frame right there. And so then that pin engages right there, and it can't extend past there. So doesn't actually, you know what? Oh yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it helps in terms of flexing upwards this way. But again, for overextension, it works. It works just fine. And when you look at the lockup right there, extremely early. That's probably like 10% maybe. I've flipped this thing hundreds of times. Hasn't moved at all. It hasn't moved, you know, even like a millimeter. So carbonized lock face, holding up extremely well against the RWL34. I believe it's hardened at around 59 or 60 or so. You got the lanyard hole, which is countersunk. You know, just a great job on the countersinking right there. This is the only little part of the knife that I didn't think was finished quite that well. Well, this and the inside of the honeycomb pattern here, which I'll talk about in a second. But you see this honeycomb pattern finish kind of hits the edge of this blade, and you know, so I don't know, you don't get that like countersink look that looks really sharp over here. Not a big deal. It is polished. I think Eric takes this to a Scotch-Brite wheel. So it's polished around here. Again, every knife is going to be different in terms of the ways that they finish it. And then you get a customized pocket clip. Probably one of the best pocket clips that I've ever had the pleasure of, you know, using, putting in my pocket and all that kind of stuff. So I really like the sleek look of it. Really smart how they just, you know, screw it down here so it's kind of low ride. Basically this much hangs out of your pocket, which is about nothing. All right. Couple things about this knife. All right. In terms of fit and finish, fit is bar none. It's up there with the rest of them. Great fit for this knife. Everything is perfectly centered on this knife. You can crank this down with the bearings, and it still, you know, it still flips out perfectly. For finish, I would say about 90% of the finish is amazing. Everything on here, all the grind lines or CNC lines, if you will, you know, I mean, it should be, it's machined. But you know, they had to put, if you watch their video, you know, they put so much work into putting together all these jigs that would fit together with their CNC machine and all that kind of stuff. Everything is just rounded out perfectly right here. The finish on the blade is awesome. It's really great, and it slices like a dream. The only thing really is on this presentation scale. So if you guys have followed this channel, you know that there's two different styles of the display scale. One is a diamond pattern, which is kind of an elevated diamond pattern that they cut out of, and then there's a honeycomb pattern. So you see that it's raised, kind of raised ridges right there, and so the CNC machine goes in and kind of drills in a little bit on everywhere, you know, and it's all, again, it's all programmed in there, so it's uniform. Now the one thing is that, you know, with that drill or the bit that they're using, you see a lot of, I mean, it's in the lighting, it looks really nice. It shimmers and kind of gleams a little bit, but when you look at it close up, you see a lot of the machining marks in here. You know, it leaves like a little circle. You kind of see it like right there, right there, right there. You know, so there's a little bit of circle, you know, where the drill bit finishes drilling out and then is released. So I don't know, like it. I would have preferred that it's polished out and everything like that, and then you get some of the rough, you know, right here. It's pretty rough in there, you know. So in terms of the finish right there, it's not quite perfection. So I think that was one thing that I was expecting a little bit more of, you know, in terms of the polishing out. And that, I mean, I know that would be a really hard thing for them to do. You know, they do like all kinds of anodizing, you know, the inside, and then they'll anodize or polish out the top, you know, the top part of the raised part of this honeycomb pattern. You know, overall, it's a stunning look. But again, when you're talking about finish, with the drill parts on here and the roughness of the cut titanium or drilled out titanium, you know, it's just slightly not as aesthetically pleasing. You know, if it was polished out, I think it would just be all the better. So overall, though, it's still a great knife. Ergonomically, fits the hand great. Reverse grip, great. This is not by any means a tactical knife, though. Can it be used in that way? You know, yes, for sure. But this, for me, this is one of my formal carries. That's why I put the Burnley out here. You know, it works well. It's super thin. You know, when you compare this with these, I'm sorry, that's Hinder, the Sebenza right here. You know, it's a lot thinner than the Sebenza. You know, even without, let's go here. All right, there we go. Even without the micarta scales, you know, this would be substantially thinner than the Sebenza. I'm not sure what the thickness of the TI is on here. I should get some digital calipers, but it's relatively thin, you know, when you compare it to the Sebenza and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, it just fits into the pocket great. Very non-obtrusive for sure. Oh, two things as well. Two other things. I think it's H15 Sulu. He also had a Norseman in his collection. If you don't crank this pin down, right now it's a little bit tight. You know, this thing comes down. The blade comes down like a guillotine. And if your finger's right here, it will just chop you right off. Because Eric did a great job of sharpening this knife. And it just comes down, you know, with those ball bearings. It's such a smooth knife. You know, it's not going to have any blade play and all that kind of stuff. So you think it's not going to come down. But, you know, even after I've cranked the screw down, you know, my finger was in the way. But this can come down and really catch you if you're not careful. I haven't done that yet, so, but I'm just reminded of, you know, when I watched his review on that. That's one thing. And then the other thing is, he also talked about this in his review. Without that pin right there, so if you do have a first generation Grimsmo, without that pin, this lock bar is one of the loosest frame locks that I've ever had to actuate. You know, for the Sebenza, I don't ever worry about overextending it because, I mean, you have to be deliberate in pushing it out, you know, past its, you know, past where it's flush with the frame. You know, with the liner lock and all that kind of stuff, you don't have to worry about that. With the Sebenza, or with the Hinder, you got the lock bar stabilizer and all that kind of stuff. So you don't worry about any of those locks being overextended. You know, again, I mean, the same can be said with this pin, but I know with the first generation, you really have to be careful. I mean, I barely push this over and it's already past, you know, where the frame is, and it's where the pin stops it. You know, so if anything were to happen to that pin, that lock would, you know, overextend for sure. So I don't know if, you know, it's actually, you know, when you look at this lock cutout right here, it is really thin, extremely thin. And then on the underside of it, it's also cut out with his, markings, John Grimsmo Norseman on there. So that even makes it thinner because it's right there on the lock bar cutout. So it does make for a very thin lock. I'm wondering if that would kind of take away from the strength, or I know it's going to take away from the strength of the knife because all the strength of the frame lock is on this lock cutout. So again, this is not a hard use folder. It's a formal carry knife for me. I've used it to scrape off like wax at a wedding, for the candle on the altar. And yeah, I was kind of, this blade shape actually came in, perfect. It was super handy. And I just used this Tonto tip to scrape away at the wax that was stuck on the wood table. And yeah, it worked great. And it didn't scrape off any of the wood, and scraped the wax off like a champ. So anyway, overall for John and Eric's first knife, it's a phenomenal piece. I love the recurve Tonto look on here. I love the CNC machining. In general, I love the honeycomb pattern and the anodizing and all that kind of stuff. Couple of just finish issues, that I have, but definitely not deal breakers when it comes to this knife. Okay, so check out their channel, John Grimsmo, Grimsmo. Just really, really talented knife makers from Canada. Seems like there's a lot of Canadian knife makers out there now with extreme, just amazing talent. So Peter Vicente and Grimsmo, and I know there's quite a few others as well. So anyway, check out their stuff. Yeah, just if you just want to learn, about knife making. I did say, a lot of stuff is CNC machined, but a lot of it is hand finished as well. There's so much stuff that, as they're going through, they're finishing. One thing also on this knife, really quick to mention before I forget, if you look at, I don't know if this light is going to wash it out, but you can see on that lock bar right there, I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. Again, when it comes to finish issues and all that kind of stuff, there's basically 3 cutouts for the ball detent. And I think he was just trying to get it right, on this knife. So, a couple of little things that aren't quite perfected, on this knife. So, yeah, I mean, you would prefer to spend this kind of money on a knife and then, have just one hole cut out for the ball detent. This one, from what I saw, has 3, So, little things here and there. Again, not deal breakers when it comes to a knife of this quality. So, anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Overall, just a great knife. John Grimsmo is also just a really great guy, as well as Eric. And if you watch their channel, you won't think otherwise. Okay, so thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next vid.